Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down one of the most powerful and, frankly, one of the most debated pieces of surveillance legislation in the Western world, the UK's Investigatory Powers Act 2016. It seems like such a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer gets complicated very, very quickly, and it's all wrapped up in this one massive law. So, before 2016, the UK surveillance laws were, well, they were kind of a mess, a patchwork of dozens of different rules. This act was designed to pull everything together under one single updated framework. It also got a pretty catchy nickname, the Snooper's Charter. Okay, let's dive into what's actually in it.
So, what can the government actually do under this act? Let's get right into it and look at the most significant powers it grants.
First up is interception. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The power to read your emails, listen to your phone calls, or see the content of your messages. Now, the crucial detail here, this can only happen with a lawful warrant. Next, we have something called equipment interference. I know, it's a bit of a technical term, but what it really describes is essentially state-sanctioned hacking. This is the power that allows authorities to, say, remotely access a computer or smartphone to gather information. And then there are Internet Connection Records, or ICRs. This is a really, really important one. The best way to think about it is like an itemized bill for your internet use. It shows which websites or apps you connected to, the who, when, and where, but it does not include the specific pages you visited or the messages you actually sent. And how long can this data be kept? Well, the Act allows the government to require internet and phone companies to hold on to these internet connection records for up to 12 months. So how are these powers used? The Act makes a really big distinction between two main approaches. On one hand, you have targeted surveillance, which is all about zeroing in on a specific person, a group, or even a location. But on the other hand, you have bulk collection. This is where large quantities of data are gathered, usually from overseas, to then be searched to try and find new or unknown threats.
Okay, these are some pretty extensive powers we're talking about. So the next logical question is, who gets to decide when they get used? And that brings us to the approval process.
This is the absolute centerpiece of the Act's safeguards. It's known as the double lock. For the most intrusive warrants, it requires not one, but two sign-offs. First, political approval from a government minister, the Secretary of State. And second, legal approval from a senior independent judge. Both have to say yes. And it's not just about getting a signature. There's a very strict legal test that has to be met. Any intrusion into someone's privacy has to be both necessary for a specific goal and proportionate to what they're trying to achieve. Basically, you can't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. It's a fundamental check on these powers. The approval process is one thing, for sure. But what about ongoing oversight? I mean, who's making sure these powers aren't being misused down the line? Well, the Act created a single powerful watchdog for this exact purpose, the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office, or IPCO. And to make sure it's fully independent, it's always led by a current or former senior judge. So, what does IPCO do? Think of them as the independent referee. Their job is to keep a constant eye on how these powers are being used. They can walk into intelligence agencies and conduct audits, they investigate when mistakes are made, and they report every year to the Prime Minister on how the whole system is working. So, we have these powerful tools, and we have a system of checks and oversight. But what's the big idea behind it all? It really comes down to a fundamental tension, a balancing act that societies have been wrestling with for centuries. The entire act is an attempt to walk a tightrope. On one side, you have national security, giving authorities the tools they argue they need to keep people safe from things like terrorism and serious crime. And on the other side, you have the fundamental right to privacy in our modern digital age. And to try and keep that balance, the act is very specific about why these powers can be used. It's not a free-for-all. They're explicitly tied to serious objectives, like national security, preventing or detecting serious crime, and even protecting the economic well-being of the country. So, does it work? That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Supporters of the Act will tell you it provides absolutely necessary powers, but with world-class, robust oversight. Critics, on the other hand, argue it gives the state far too much power to watch its citizens. The debate is ongoing, and that question of where you draw the line between security and privacy is one we all have to consider.